I wish we lived in a world where there was a little more empathy and common sense.
Like, we cannot fucking help ourselves. It's just... Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Doom Scroll podcast. Boy, do we have some doom scrolling for you this week. Well, as you know, something pretty, I don't know, pretty big happened this week. And Charlie Kirk, who is, a right-wing influencer, podcaster, Christian nationalism type of guy, was assassinated on a college campus as he was doing his little thing where he debates college kids. And Calvin, before we completely dive into that, how you doing?
I'm tired. I would say that's how I would define how I feel, is just tired. Yeah, I feel like again, it's like every week something worse happens and I'm ready for a break and it's not happening. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. How about you?
Absolutely same. Exhausted. The tension in the US, it existed before this happened, but now it's just, escalated exponentially with people calling for more violence, civil war, whatever, on a whole half of the country because they voted a certain way. Yeah, it's just a lot to handle, a lot to take in, just as we were recovering from being, trans people are going to remain the scapegoat. And we were blamed for the last shooting. And now they are digging for they're stretching. They're making absolute stretches to still blame it on trans people. And I don't understand it. Why?
I mean, the easiest way to unite people together is to have a common enemy. I mean, we saw that with 9/11. They brought the country back because it was all, against, people from Iraq, and Muslims. And that was like their whole, like, we hate them, and we'll bond together. And it kind of feels like it's that same situation where it's now the trans people that are the scapegoat.
Yeah. Only they're uniting the right because there was a divide with the Epstein situation, the Epstein files and stuff. But they're like, hey, we know all of you on the right hate trans people, so we're going to try to unite y'all again on this topic specifically. So should we not that people would have to be living under a rock to not know how it all went down, but should we kind of go through step by step how this all fucking happened? So what we know so far, Charlie Kirk, he's 31 years old. He was the founder of Turning Point USA and Trump ally. He was fatally shot in the neck on September 10th, 2025 during a speaking event at the Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. It was part of his American Comeback tour. He was answering audience questions when a single sniper shot from a rooftop about 430 feet away hit him around 12:23 p.m. And then, the graphic videos were spreading around on Twitter almost instantly. It was hard to miss it. If you got on Twitter, it was like every other tweet. That was awful, yeah. So for the longest time, we didn't know who the shooter was. We didn't know anything, but the right instantly came after the left and was declaring civil war. So having, the experience of the last trans shooter, I know I was just bracing myself. I feel like I was just like refreshing the news, refreshing Twitter threads, whatever I could get to find out like who the shooter was, more information, because I knew it was going to come to this again. And we had a moment of relief where we found out it was not anyone who was trans. It was just this white guy from Utah that had a Mormon family. Actually, their whole family is Republicans. And so that wasn't, I don't think, what they were expecting. But now as we've kind of got more information, well, first of all, the Wall Street Journal put out that thing where it said the bullets were engraved with transgender ideology, and that was the first wave of outrage towards the trans community. Then they retracted it because they realized, oh, it was just the manufacturer of the bullets, little signature. It was nothing to do with trans ideology. What does that even mean? I don't fucking know. Like, what would you engrave in bullets that makes it like trans ideology? So that started, that ignited the fire, and then it kind of slowly died down, although we didn't get any like apology or anything like that. But now they confirmed that the shooter had a trans roommate / partner. I don't know what it is in TF. And yeah. And I'm like, cool. How is that relevant here? They're not the one that pulled the trigger, and they're like cooperating with the authorities and stuff. But the fact that, like the FBI and everyone released that specifically stating that this person has a trans roommate / partner that is cooperating. Why would you even fucking say that if they're cooperating? They know what they're doing, and it's fucking awful. Anyways, I don't even know where to start. Like, my brain is just so scattered. So sorry if I just keep like skipping around and stuff. But yeah, where's your head at? What have you seen?
I think, I won't speak for both of us. I feel like we have the same thoughts on this, but, I don't condone violence in any fashion. And I don't think that Charlie Kirk's death was a good thing. I'm not happy about it. I don't think anyone should be assassinated. I don't think anyone should be murdered. My whole position is like this, I know there's a lot of people that hate Donald Trump and, talk freely about like, I just wish he would die. I don't agree with that. I am very much in the mind frame of, if someone does something bad, they should face justice, but I don't feel like taking justice into your own hands. The same thing with the guy who killed the CEO of the insurance company, I don't agree with that. I understand the frustration that could cause you to feel like there's no other choice and you want to take it in your hands. I can understand that, but it's not right. And, it's, for me personally, the reactions from this has been really hard to see, because I have seen friends and family that know about me, who I thought cared about me and love me, and they're not posting just, this is sad, or, this shouldn't happen. They're posting like that this guy was a saint, and like, his values will be pushed through, and like all these things. And I'm like, you're talking about a man who like didn't want trans people to exist. Like, that's what his belief was. Like, trans people were bad. Gender affirming care was bad. People of color, aren't the same as white people, So it definitely, like, just aside from this, has kind of shook my world up a little bit, because now I'm having to face the fact that people that I thought, supported me, don't really support me, But I don't know. It's really hard, and it's really hard seeing the vitriol that's now being posted. And we're seeing, like you said, our representatives blaming the trans community. And it's so easy for that rhetoric to turn into violence, and we already have an issue in this country with people who have access to guns and are angry. We look at the Pulse shooting. We look at all these things where hate causes more violence, and whatever reason or motivation that the shooter had for shooting Charlie Kirk, whether it was, leftist ideas, or, anger at the fact that their partner is trans and this person is talking negatively about trans, or other situations, like, there has not been evidence of his motive yet. And it's so easy for that to spiral out, and I just don't want to see more people get hurt. And that's honestly, it feels like that's what's going to happen, is we're going to see either someone decide they're going to shoot up, like a trans meet and greet, or, or start finding people and doxing them. I just saw a video on TikTok where apparently someone has set up a website, and it scans all of like TikTok and Instagram and X, and if you said anything negative about Charlie Kirk and his death, it like populates all your information and basically doxes you. So you can look up and find out anyone who's said anything negative about Charlie Kirk. And that's going to, I wouldn't be surprised if someone, who is far right, has a lot of anger and emotional issues, takes a gun and decides to show up at, someone's house, So it's really scary. I wish we lived in a world where there was a little more empathy and common sense. And it's not where, I also watched a video of Kamala Harris. I think she was on the Colbert Show or something like that. And, he's talking about, are you going to run for governor? And she said no. And, the reason is she doesn't want to be back in the system, that she feels like the system has become extremely flawed, and she had faith in the system before and she doesn't have it anymore. And I completely agree. Like our whole government is corrupted, and it's really scary. So unless you are, a straight white cis man, it's really scary to be in this country right now. And the more minority you get, the more terrifying it is. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm feeling at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that as well. And luckily I didn't say anything like bad about his death, but I did see that they have a website up already where it's not even people who are like celebrating. It's even if people are saying, if they're disowning, they're like violence is bad, even if they say that, but they even just say, but I don't like Charlie Kirk, they're still doxing those people. And I have said that. So I'm like, oh, cool. At least I don't have an employer. But, it's just like, again, I posted something because, like it was awful. I don't condone the violence at all. I think it's so easy to dehumanize each other on either side. I loathe everything that he stood for and said. But at the end of the day, he's still a human and he has kids and a family and stuff. And I know that people are like, well, so did Hitler. And it's like, okay, but he wasn't Hitler yet. We could assume, maybe he would get there someday, but we can't judge people off of who we might assume they're going to become, because people could do the same thing back to us. We could become this violent trans person that they have in their heads and justify shooting us. Or it's just that you have to be careful what you justify or what you think is okay, because you have to think it could be flipped around on you too. And also, at the end of the day, they're trying to stir up culture wars. They're trying to still just pit us against each other when it isn't left versus right. It's literally like a class situation. It's like it's up and down, right? Not left, right. And they're doing a really fucking great job at keeping Americans divided so that billionaires can just keep getting richer and keep control. And it sucks. And I think the algorithms contribute to the outrage. And I almost want to think, when this all kind of really got worse, and of course it got worse when Trump was elected in 2016, but something else also happened around the 2016 era, is that a lot of algorithms switched from like chronological order to basically whatever's getting the most hits and clicks. And everything is kind of flipped over to that ever since. And so now you are getting mostly just drama and rage because we're human and we can't help ourselves. Like, we cannot fucking help ourselves. It's just, we're wired that way to see the negativity, to interact with that. And so it has made us just so much more divided. Throw in some Russian and Chinese bots in there, stoking the fire. And yeah, we're just going to stay at each other's throats, unfortunately. I'm like, can there be an algorithm reform? I know there's some where you can change things to chronological order. You can do that manually, but not everyone's going to do it. People are addicted to it at this point. And I feel like it's up to, at some point, where does some of the responsibility fall on the platforms owners of things. Like, where are people getting radicalized? In the algorithm, because people are fucking pissed at everybody and everything. None of
You're
this,
either pissed or you're terrified.
yeah. And none of this would be happening if we, like, think if Twitter and like Threads and I mean, Instagram isn't as at each other's throat kind of situation. It definitely didn't used to be, but it still potentially could do that. But specifically X, it is a fucking dumpster fire, especially since Elon took over and having him be the one who is also engaging in this behavior. It's like, at what point do social media companies take ownership over how their algorithm is working and what information it is putting out to people, and knowing that humans are flawed, and although we like create the algorithm because it's what we're clicking on, what we're giving the most attention, like, how can we make it so that's not the case, so that we're not just constantly at each other's throats? I don't know the answer, but I feel like that is a chunk, that is a piece of the puzzle we're not really talking about. Because yeah, it's a thing, most definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I think, just this spiral of anger and the fact that it's being directed at a community that is probably one of the least violent communities that there is, it sucks. I mean, I've mentioned it before, and I wish I was able to get out. I wish I could just get out of here and go somewhere that, had some semblance of, kind of stuck. And so it's hard, luckily we're in California, so we have a little bit of, safety, but that doesn't really protect us from other people. I just I worked an event, surrounded by Republicans that, were all shooting guns, and, they did a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. And, in that moment, I was thinking, like, if they knew about me, like, what would happen? Like, is there someone here that's angry enough that, they might not shoot me, but like, could I be harmed in any way just because of that vitriol that's out there? But yeah, it's just absolutely terrifying. And I feel like, probably every 5 videos I'm scrolling through on TikTok, there's just another thing where it's like, streaming, get out of here, But yeah, it's not a great feeling right now. And to jump back to, what you were saying about the bullets and the trans connection that the Washington Journal first connected, it was their Turin branded bullets, and so the stamp on the bullets is TRN. So that was the connection that they jumped with. So
It's like, for real, you wouldn't, like, how did you not double check anything before you decided to release that information and put a community at risk? And now, we got the authorities specifically being like, we have their trans partner. Well, it's just like, you didn't have to say that. You just didn't. And I feel like if it was any other community, if it was a situation where it was like a conservative that, like, he ended up being a conservative, they wouldn't even describe the partner. They would just say like someone close to the shooter or roommate of the shooter. They would not give any more information or details. So to throw out the trans card just to make people mad is just, it shows you that this administration is legitimately targeting trans people, and there's no basis for it either. It's nutty to me. And also, like, say the guy is left leaning, I'm pretty sure that's going to be what is going to come of this. Maybe he's part of Antifa or whatever. That's different than being on the left. Like, that's different than just being a Democrat. Antifa has been known for violence and stuff like that. But they're just this small cringe group that happens to hold some left-leaning opinions. But that does not mean that the whole Democratic Party is violent and looking to assassinate people. So, I mean, I wouldn't even put Charlie Kirk on my fucking radar for someone who should have been assassinated. Like, I do not agree with anything that he said ever,
Hmm.
but I've never thought, I really hope he would die. I really wish he
Yeah.
would be like, no, I prefer to just make fun of what he tweeted. Like,
Hmm.
it's just like, no, I can't wrap my mind around the blame and just everything that happened. And I think the biggest fucking thing that has blown my mind, and I just don't even see how people on the right can be okay with what is happening, is that our president is only stoking the fire. The president is supposed to be a leader. He's supposed to be the president of the United States. And the last time I checked, it doesn't matter what side you're on, you're still an American. He is the president for all Americans. And now when people say, not my president, you know what we fucking mean. It's because he like refuses to be the president or a leader for the left. He's all just whoever is loyal to him, and he doesn't give a fuck about anyone else, which is scary. But he was on Fox, and they asked him, how can we unite the country again? How can we fix this? And he was like, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but I could care less. What kind of president says that? It is his
He
absolute
said he could care less about the violence that because they're doing it for good reason, basically, but the left are the insane ones.
right. And it's like you realize that there was also a school shooting the same day, and that kid had been radicalized white supremacists, and he was alt right, but they don't talk about that at all. There has not even been a tiny bit mention of that shooting that happened on the same day that Charlie Kirk got shot. And also, no mention of the people or the dude that killed was Melissa Hortman and their dog and husband or whatever. I didn't see anyone on the right necessarily like cheering or celebrating it, but
Hmm.
there was also this like, meh, who cares
Yeah,
attitude.
they didn't condemn it. They didn't fly their flags at half mast when that happened. And they're doing that for Charlie Kirk right now. In fact, like Charlie Kirk basically praised the person who, not them, but like he praised the attacker of Nancy Pelosi's husband. Like there's so much violence going on and the stoking of this fire. And I feel like with this, unfortunately, like they kind of got their martyr. They've got someone to amp that rage against.
Yeah. I think that's I was saying, it's just like, I fucking hate that this happened because, I did not like Charlie Kirk, but you just gave them the greatest fucking gift. They love nothing more than a martyr and a reason to be violent and to declare war. So I'm like, actually, if this Tyler Robinson kid was the actual shooter, I fucking hate that guy because look what he's done. Like, this isn't a Luigi moment at all. Like, not even close. This is like, dude, you fucked up for everybody. So, I'm like, I don't know what you're thinking, but we are not better off because of what you did. So, yeah, it's rough with all the rhetoric right now. With about what people are saying about trans people, how we need to be like, and they need to ban HRT, they need to wipe us out, they need to put us in asylums or kill us or whatever because we're a death cult and all this stuff. I'm just kind of like, how is it that you went, like a few months ago, you banned us from the military because we're too woke and weak, and you want a strong military, and now we're a terrorist group. You want us to be declared a terrorist group. So which one is it? Are we violent or are we woke? I just make up your mind.
Yeah.
It just make it make sense.
Our new hat brand, make it make sense again.
Yes. Uh, I need to work on making those because goddamn.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. yeah, I don't know if this guy, again, if he's the shooter, we don't want to jump to conclusions until we have 100% evidence, right? And I also wouldn't put it past this administration to have a fall guy, or to even like, do we even know if this partner of his is real, or if this is just a story they're now bringing up to try and bring it back to trans? Like, unfortunately, like, I don't trust anything they say, just because we've seen them lie boldface so many times. But if this was a left idealist type of thing, maybe he was trying to get his Luigi moment. We saw Luigi basically become famous for this, and even for a short amount of time, and maybe this guy was thinking he can get the same type of fame or love or whatever. I don't know. I can't say what was in someone's head, because I don't think that same way. I don't think of hurting someone as a way to get something I want. But I think that's something that we have to think about as the trans community, or as the LGBT community, or as an ally. We need to really be thinking about our actions right now. And we can't react out of emotion, because anything we do right now is going to be used against us. I'm not saying, that everyone's going to go out and be violent. I don't think that at all. But, I do think, we have to be careful what we say right now. We have to be careful what we do. Because, there's a storm brewing, and, we don't know what's going to be that final straw,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think too, let's see. So yeah, we're just, once again, the scapegoat of it all. And the internet is really hard to be on right now, because it's so loaded with it. It's basically unavoidable. And I think it's also telling too who really cares. Like you mentioned, you've had family members and stuff just like posting about Charlie Kirk. And it's interesting how they can so easily post about Charlie Kirk and have their empathy and condolences, or feel sad for this man that they didn't even know. But at the same time, they know trans people that are close to them and won't even make the effort to make a post defending them and being like, hey, actually, this is really not right. Like, I know a trans person, they're the most or least violent person that I know, or whatever. They're just regular people. So silence definitely speaks volumes at the moment, because there's not that many of us. So it's kind of like, I really appreciate people who do speak out in support. That means a lot, for those who don't, like, I'm beyond like the point of anger. I just feel fucking sad.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I would say I just feel hurt.
Yeah, same. And so I'm like, I don't even have energy to be mad. I'm just like, it's been one hit after another. Trump's whole campaign, and it's just like, it's something, something, something. It's just always something. We got fucking Nancy Mace constantly running her mouth. And so it just gets to a point where you're like, man, it's a lot. And then they wonder why the suicide rate is so high. It's such a mystery. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to be a normal person and live my fucking life and not be blamed for everything, like murder. Like, damn. So
yeah, it's definitely hard. Yeah, I don't know. I just, there's so many things that happen just like leave me speechless, because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say, but it's definitely hard. It feels isolating. It sucks that, like, all this is happening, and I haven't had, one, other than you, but I haven't had, one friend or family member reach out and be like, hey, are you okay? I don't believe any of this. Like, I haven't had anything, and that's, it just makes you feel like people don't really care. So it's definitely rough. And like you said, the suicide rate with our, community is super high. And so I know if I'm feeling that way, probably most of the community is feeling that way as well. But I don't know what the path forward is. I don't know I don't think there really is anything that we can do to, change this trajectory. I feel like, since Trump ran for the second term, we have definitely been the target. His first term, it was, the Mexicans and the cartels and, building the wall. And, they were the reason why violence and murder and drugs and, everything that goes wrong basically in this country was because, they're coming over the border, just absolute bullshit. And now it feels like it's turning to like everything that goes wrong is trans people, and so, yeah, it's rough, and I think, this, while I don't agree that Charlie Kirk, should have been killed, I also don't feel like glorifying a man is also the right thing to do. And I feel like there are a lot of people that are just jumping on it who have never really looked into who Charlie Kirk is and maybe just think, oh, he's a Christian, and so I'm going to back up a fellow Christian, and haven't really looked into, his views. And if that's the case, if you're one of those people, then I highly suggest that you do research on someone that you're praising. And I think that there's a lot of people that just also secretly feel the same way and have that hate inside of them and just are too cowardice to just admit that that's how they feel. And so this is their way of kind of, showing that light. And to be honest, like, I don't have room for those type of people in my life. So I just think that, we're just in a really scary spot right now in this country.
Yeah, very, very scary. I don't think I've more than ever, I've been thinking about going stealth. Like I've never had serious thoughts about that because I just like, whatever, I don't care. But I'm like, it might actually matter. So I'm just kind of like thinking of a plan of, is that impossible? How do I even go about that? There's just so much on the internet now,
Yeah.
The only thing I think of is like changing my name so people don't Google me, But I've already done that, and it's a pain in the fucking ass. Like, one thing I was also thinking, so initially I actually had quite a bit of empathy for the guy and his family, but I think mostly because I have a history, I've been immersed with those, his same thought process. I was, very much inside the church. I am very familiar with his beliefs, and it's nothing new to me. There's no shock value to it. I know those are Christian beliefs. I know those are evangelical Christian beliefs. So it's all old news to me. I've heard it all before, and doesn't mean I like it, but it's nothing that I'm like, oh my gosh, can you believe what he believes? I'm just like, yeah, I grew up with that, grew up believing all that shit. And so part of me wants to be like, feeling like, well, I was indoctrinated. I had those beliefs at some point. Maybe the same goes for him. Maybe he's only 31 years old. Maybe he would have woken up, and he did start questioning things with Trump a little bit towards the end there, which is one conspiracy theory. But so I'm like, there's still chance, he would have woken up or whatever. He was young. But the more that I see how his followers react or the people close to him react, and then, he's supposed to be this man of God, this Jesus specifically, who is supposed to be about forgiveness and grace and love. If he was supposed to have that influence and represent who he believed in like that and be more godlike, be like Jesus, you would think that his base and his influence would react differently in the situation. They're allowed to have, their emotions, whatever, that's valid. But to come back with, wanting revenge on a whole group of people, not just one person, like, be mad at the guy who actually fucking did it. That's okay. But it is not everyone else's fault. So my empathy that I originally had is just dying by the second because of how his following is reacting. And it just shows like that was his influence. That was his real influence, is you can see it in how his followers react. So it's like, well, if he was actually a follower of Jesus and preached love and forgiveness and stuff like that, then they wouldn't be calling for a civil war after his death.
Yeah.
And another thing that kind of really just rubbed me the wrong, and even I saw some Republicans talking about this, but so his wife, I had never seen her before. I'd never heard her speak. When I started to tune in when she addressed America, I guess. Kirk was a podcaster. It's crazy also how much they are doing for this guy, for one. But, anyways, so she gives her little speech, and I expected her as a Christian woman who, loves Jesus and who apparently, like, her husband loved Jesus. The usual kind of Christian thing is to say, like, even you could even say, I'm so hurt, I'm angry, I'm sad. But he was a follower of Jesus, and I know he would have wanted to forgive. But she did not. She only stoked the fire more. She was angry, and it just kind of was saying the same thing that whole side is saying. It just repeated it. And it was just weird in general. Like she was like wiping tears that weren't there. Um, it was very like Serena from Handmaid's Tale
Hmm.
vibes. It was
Yeah.
strange. And then I think it was the next day, she posted this video of her like crying over Charlie's body. And it was bizarre. It's something that people like normal people don't post that. And you don't see
Yeah.
her face or anything. You just hear her like whispering that she loves him and that, she's crying. And it like showed his hands, and it was very, very weird. And it just felt like she's like monetizing
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
or doing it for attention. But then also it just felt scripted and acted like I was watching a movie. It was fucking weird. And I'm not trying to like say she can't act this way. Of course, her husband has just died, but it's just a little weird. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have been pointing that out, and
It feels dishonest.
it does. And yeah, so I think after seeing that, I don't know why I pictured his wife differently, but I think I just assumed like I would see this like really emotional woman who was also a Christian who loved Jesus and knew her husband loved Jesus and would be so kind and forgiving, because you even see videos sometimes floating around the internet where there's a family in the courtroom as like maybe their daughter's killer is about to be sentenced to life or whatever. And they get to come up and say their part like to this person. And so many times you see people like forgiving the killer and being like, I'm forgiving you because Jesus would want me to forgive you and that sort of thing. And that's what I expected, but that was not it. And so, and those people are also like so emotional when they're even saying these things, like they can't even hold shit together. And she was just like, this makeup, like it was so just kind of bizarre. I don't know how else to describe it. So watch that if you haven't.
Yeah. And then I know that there's been like some connection with, or it got pointed out something with like Nick Fuentes with his like rapers group. Has anything come of that, or is that?
No, that was originally they were trying to figure out, was it this Nick Fuentes, alt-right situation that radicalized him? And that was his motive because Kirk wasn't basically conservative enough for him. But I think the more and more we're learning, which is hard to trust the information that's even coming out, it's seeming more like he came from a conservative MAGA family, but you know, his politics changed, maybe because he was gay. I don't know. But there's plenty of gay Republicans. Fuck, there's even trans Republicans. So we still can't, you know, say that he was definitely on the left just because you're trans. Like, trans isn't a political party. Like, I mean, I vote for people that are less likely to take my rights away. Doesn't mean I agree with everything. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so what was I saying? I can't remember where I was even fucking going with this, but like I just keep like my brain. But yeah, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. We still are not 100% sure. The Nick Fuentes thing does feel suspicious because looked pretty scared. I think he put out something. It was just like, no violence, no violence. I think he was afraid to get blamed for it. And
Hmm.
Laura Loomer, she's lost her goddamn mind. But before this all happened, she was actually shitting on Charlie Kirk and saying that he's no longer MAGA or whatever because he just turns around and stabs Trump in the back. But I think this is because he started questioning Israel. He started questioning he wanted the Epstein files released, and he said that before he was shot, not too long before, and so she was shitting on him, and she deleted that, but now she's pretending like it didn't happen. She's making everything like she's grieving Charlie's death, and she wants all these things to be done in his name. I'm like, bitch, you were fucking shitting on him 5 minutes ago. So I feel like she is like afraid or like looking guilty, and so she's trying to cover up, but it's not real. And like, you're worse. And let's talk for a second about how Trump actually does not give a fuck, and no one is seeing his reaction and feeling like that he might as well have doxed him for celebrating because he went to the Yankees game and was fucking dancing in the same day. Does that look like someone who is reacting to someone who they said they considered them a son?
Yeah.
If
No,
that's
he doesn't
true,
care.
no, like you're a really fucking horrible person. And then they asked him at the next day, like, how you holding up after Charlie's death? He's like, oh, pretty good. And then he starts talking about his patio all in one sentence, in one breath. And it's like, how is the right not mad at Trump for acting like a complete douche canoe about this guy that supposedly means so much to him?
Is a national hero, apparently.
Yeah. This guy's getting military treatment for being a podcaster. Let's be real.
Not even military treatment. He's getting like treatment for like reserved for like presidents and stuff. Like they wanted to, I don't know if it got approved, but I know that they were wanting to have his body like in the Capitol or in the Rotunda or something for viewing. Like it's just so ridiculous. Like, what they're doing. I don't know if you saw the video of, I think it was NATO or something, one of the world unions or whatever, and the United States was like, we want to reserve like a minute of silence for Charlie Kirk, and like they did the minute of silence or whatever, or no, that was the US one, but they asked to do a minute of silence, and the European Union was like, no, like he was a person who spewed beliefs that were very against what we believe, and we are not going to give a moment of silence for him. And I think that's pretty awesome that they kind of stood up to that. But yeah, it's they're going to use the situation as a reason to push their hatred and anger and anything that's going to further the machine. And yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it certainly does. So for anyone listening that, might be on the right, we are not violent. I do not own firearms. Like, I have never once thought about shooting anybody. Basically, I mean, even when Trump's ear got grazed, or did it, we don't fucking know. Instantly, I was just like, this is not going to be good because it only makes things worse. I don't know the answer. I know there's people that were mad at me for saying violence wasn't the answer because they're like, sometimes it is, and I'm like, this guy was a podcaster.
Yeah.
Like, he said a lot of fucking shit, and he had a lot of, he had a big influence on things. But unfortunately, he's just one of many of the same
Hmm.
fucking assholes. It's like taking a bat to a beehive and, thinking that you're going to get rid of the problem, and it only makes things worse. Now they're chasing you around, ready to, angrily stab you with their little butt pins. And like, they don't give a fuck. They just want to kill you. And so I'm just like, no, this was not fucking the answer. Because
Yeah.
now it's going to bring more violence and shit on people who are nonviolent, who are not armed, and don't wish someone to be dead.
Yeah. And already a very vulnerable community.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know how. I would love to say the answer is to, you know, fight back in government and talk to your representatives and stuff. But I don't trust shit anymore. Nothing gets done. Uh, so yeah, but unfortunately, it's like unless you can take them all out. Oh God, FBI, don't come at me for that. It's just like the only thing we can do is try to remain sane and peaceful. I don't know.
But I
So
mean, like, even if hypothetically, everyone was taken out, there's always going to be someone that's going to take the next place. I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched the Marvel movies, but that's kind of the whole point of like the main, villainous group is like Hydra. And it's like you chop off one head and like three more grow in its place. Like that's just what happens. But also, like, if we thought with that rhetoric, if we thought of, like, well, we just, gotta, off all of them and we'll be fine, we're no better than they are. I watched a video of a young woman who used to work for Charlie Kirk in Turning Point. And she said that, she was raised in a very conservative religious family. She shared the exact same views. She went to a Charlie Kirk thing. This was years ago, right when he was dating started. And she was so like, she admired him and, all this stuff. And so she started working for Turning Point. And it wasn't until she started going to school and learning and getting like that higher education that she realized that those views were wrong. And I think that's a lot of, what this government wants is, that's why we're cutting the Department of Education. We're cutting all these things because that's what they want. They don't want people to get a real education. They want people to get the education that they want them to have. And they don't want people critically thinking for themselves. And the moment they do that, they're going to lose because really anyone who opens their mind and gets an education and, opens their mind to other people and doesn't just have a wall up, it's, that's how you like grow as a person. And, and you realize that, not everyone is your enemy. But yeah, I mean, I watched that and I was like, that's true. Like she went to school, realized that she didn't really have those same beliefs anymore. And I think that's where like Charlie Kirk's base is just people who just take that for what it is. And, they don't challenge themselves. They don't try to learn anything else, and that's the issue we have too with social media these days is people see the first thing they see and they believe 100% and there's no fact checking. There's no, let me see if this is real. There's no digging, there's no people going into the algorithm and changing it so they're getting things that would be better for them and not just, the same trash that's being spewed out. It's easy and it's easy to hate. And that's what's happening.
yeah, I feel like it's much easier to hate. I feel like that's the lazy route to go. It takes effort to not. It takes effort to think critically. But also, it's funny because they're blaming the school system on radicalizing this kid before they found out his girlfriend was trans or his boyfriend, whatever the fuck. I don't know. His roommate was trans.
We
allegedly.
haven't, the pronouns have not been confirmed. So
no, it's like all
we don't
allegedly.
want to assume.
And so it's like before they did that, they were blaming it on the school system. They were still blaming it on Democrats. The school system is radicalizing people. It's like, do you know how many people have gone to college and not assassinated somebody? A whole lot of fucking people. So yeah, it's not the school system as much as they would like to think so. And but I mean, hey, there's Christian colleges you can go to if you think that's the case. So you don't need to enforce every school to follow your Christian beliefs. Just go to your own Christian school if you want to stay in your echo chamber. It's fine. But yeah, I don't know. And there's something else I was going to say along those lines of, I don't know what it was going to be. My brain's not working. Too much information has been downloaded this last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we jump into what we've been watching and
yeah,
get a little less depressed?
Yeah. Let's see, what have I been watching? I feel like I can't even think about what happened this week because it's just been one thing after another. Been watching more King of the Hill. Oh, we binge watched. We finished The Hunting Wives. So we watched that. We finished that. That was really good. It, Democrat surrounded by, Republican women who are all also secret lesbians and, killing people. That, can't go wrong with that show. So yeah, that was good. Continuing with Alien Earth, we watched Queen of the Damned last night. It was our wedding anniversary, so we uh, went to the Renaissance Fair and then went home, made dinner, and watched a movie. Um, that's pretty much it. I've been so busy that we haven't had a lot of media time other than scrolling on TikTok here and there. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all we watched this week. What about you?
So we watched. Somehow we landed on LoveCon Revenge or something like that. It was about. Ever watched the Tinder Swindler? Okay, so the girl who got swindled by the Tinder swindler is now doing it's like a little series where they help other women basically get justice for being scammed by men or there's actually one woman too who scammed a dude, but so they're trying to like get the police to do something about it because they've lost like thousands and thousands of dollars from these guys that scam women out of money. So it's interesting. The series itself is kind of lame in that a lot of it seems scripted, even if it's like real life scenarios. They're probably reenacting parts of it. But it's cool that she's doing that now to like help others. And then we rewatched the Tinder Swindler because like it was a few years ago. I don't think Des watched it, so it was like I was watching it again for the first time. And yeah, in a time where I already feel like I've lost hope in humanity, I lost it even more. So maybe don't watch that right now. But uh, at least she turned it into something good and positive to where she's helping other people who have gotten scammed. And so there is at least that positive aspect to it. And they did, get these people, they got law enforcement to act on it and she got some justice for people. Of course, they don't get their money back, but at least there's a little bit of justice.
Hmm.
And then I think it's about all we've fought. We're still watching Afterlife. We've only got a few episodes left, so we've been trying to pace ourselves so we don't just finish it off. Um, but that's about it this week. So kind of boring on what we were watching, but there's just been so much going on. I feel like we've both just been like refreshing news, like waiting for this. It feels like you're waiting for a verdict of if you're fucked,
Yeah, yeah,
And it's and now it's just like it doesn't matter what the verdict is. We just know they're looking to, make trans people their scapegoat. And so now we just buckle in and see what happens. I've seen people calling on Trump to do some things, and I'm just hoping that we still have enough protections in place, at least in California too, to where that isn't happening, or if there's any sane people left in the administration, they'll be sane enough to realize this trans people should not be classified as a terrorist group. We don't have to ban HRT because someone's roommate / partner was trans.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, I hope there are sane people that are willing to still fight for trans people. And I did see that there was some bill in California, I think that is about to be passed for protections for trans healthcare. So maybe to end on a little like happier note for people in California, or if you're in a red state and you're looking to move to California for a little bit safety, maybe you can't make it to Canada. You can make it to the second best thing at the moment. But so that would be good that we'd be protected when it came to healthcare. It hasn't completely been. There's like one more step, I think, but I think it's like expected to pass or something along those lines. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, so a little bit of hope. And then also I saw that the ACLU said that they defeated an appeal about the passport situation with the gender markers and how So now people can get their proper gender markers on their passports. And I'm just like, well, what about the people who already got it back with the wrong one? Do they have to like pay for a renewal or pay for an update? Because that's fucked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Tell me
yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So sorry, dude. But apparently you're supposed to be able to get the right gender marker now. I don't trust it still, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I definitely, if you haven't gotten your passport, probably now is the time to do it before that changes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm still waiting on my birth certificate amendment to go through. Sent it weeks ago. Finally got an email and they're like, it takes 15 weeks. I'm like, cool. That's a long time for like, what are you fucking doing?
15
So
weeks. That's what?
more
Is it
than
4 months?
that's yeah. Yeah. But I'm like, does that count the time? Like, cause I sent it like literal, like almost a month ago.
Mhm.
Mm. So I'm hoping that's counted in that 15 weeks because it shows the date it was received. So it's like, okay, you know that you received it on that date. And there's also a little line that says if this time frame has already passed, email us at this email address. So I feel
Mhm.
like hopefully the email I got was delayed and it's maybe I got 12 weeks left. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
fun
when I
time.
did mine, I think I got mine in like 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn,
I
that's
mean,
fast.
mine was through a different state, so you know that could be it. But yeah, mine was
What's
really quick. Mine
what's
was Washington.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, Washington is probably a little better on that for some. I know I don't know, but apparently maybe there's just so many people doing it right now. That could be the reason. So we'll see. But yeah, anywho, I'm done rambling.
Yeah. I think I need a nap now.
Yeah, same. And an Ativan.
Y- Yep.
Some a little weed gummy, all the
My
things.
I've been so stressed this last week that I've been clenching my jaw when I'm sleeping. So like when I'm awake, I just get like massive migraines and like jaw pain, and not good.
Nope, not good at all. Ugh. Well, take some Advil and we'll wrap this up. All right, guys. Sorry, this one's kind of depressing. Hopefully next week. I'm afraid to say what the fuck's gonna. We don't know. I hope things somehow die down. You know, usually they do with things like this. I'm hoping this is just, people's emotions are high and that sort of thing, and nothing's gonna be like enacted into law or nothing. But it's just so unpredictable. It's hard to know. Wait and see. Fun times. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure you do so you don't miss another episode. Give us a follow on Instagram if you like, you know, the occasional political meme and some reels, podcast clips, etc. Or if you want to leave us any comments with your thoughts on any of the issues we address, that would be awesome. We always love to hear what you're thinking. And yeah, but that's it for me. Calvin, anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. I'm ready to just end the week and hope that things get better, even though they probably won't.
I hope for the best and plan for the worst.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Peace out. See you next time.